Hey guys, welcome to Footnotes. This is our premiere podcast. My name is Dr. Rodmehr Ajdari. I'm a podiatrist. We're going to be talking about all things podiatry, foot conditions, foot-related conditions, ankle problems, anything you can think of that encompasses podiatry and the foot and ankle world, we're going to be talking about. This is our premiere podcast and broadcast, so we're going to go ahead and kind of do a little introduction. We have Chelsea with us today.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea. I am the administrative assistant for Foot Care Centers.
So Foot Care Centers is the practice that I currently work at. Started about 10 years ago in 2015. Originally from California, graduated from the University of California, Irvine with my bachelor's degree in biology. Went on to podiatry school at the California School of Podiatric Medicine. That was in Oakland, California, and essentially ended up doing residency in Philly at Chestnut Hill Hospital, which was affiliated with the University of Pennsylvania. During my time there, we saw a lot of things from diabetic foot care, wound care, sports medicine. We were the podiatrist for the athletic teams at the Penn Relay, so we saw a lot of things, soup to nuts, everything podiatry. So we have Chelsea with us. She's actually a runner was a runner in college at East Stroudsburg University. And I think she's going to go ahead and ask me some questions about, the shoes and sports and things like that. So let's get right into it.
Absolutely. Probably now, I think back in 2012, that's when I started running for East Stroudsburg. I ran distance, so track and cross country. So I firsthand know the importance of proper fitting shoes.
Of course.
Which I think is not only important for athletes, but probably important for everyone, especially people that are on their feet all day. How would you go about telling people to pick a proper shoe?
So that's a great question. We get that a lot in our practice. Appropriate, properly fitting shoes are a big thing. Number one, you want to make sure the shoe fits, if the shoe fits. So the shoe's got to fit. If you notice that you're between sizes, say, 9.5 to 10, you always want to err on the side of the slightly larger shoe, as long as your foot's not flopping around and popping out. So, ideally, as far as fitment goes, an appropriate shoe would be, one that's either exactly your size with a little bit of room. And again, if you have a mismatched, 1 foot's 10, 1 foot's 10.5, you want to err on the side of the larger shoe. You never want to squish your foot into a shoe that's too tight, because that can cause a whole host of problems. So ideally, the fitment's going to be important. And depending on the type of sport that you're doing, the shoe itself would also play an important role.
Okay. So I know when we were running, there was a certain mileage that we hit that we would have to go and buy new shoes. Now, if you're not tracking your mileage, how would you know when it's time to get a new pair? Because I know it's really important if you don't have a proper fitting shoe or the shoe starts to get older and worn out, it can lead to injury.
Absolutely. So, typically the recommendation from the literature I've seen and the experience at our office, and working with athletes at the Penn Relays and throughout my career, we've seen the shoes typically be replaced at somewhere between 300 to 500 miles. Kind of a large range, but it really depends on the type of activity you're doing. If you're running really hard on them, maybe closer to 300. But that's typically the standard. Again, there's no hard and fast number per se. It's really going to come down to how the shoe is looking after you've been on it. But on average, it's about somewhere between the 300 to 500 mile range of actually using the shoe. Now, obviously, not everyone tracks their mileage, so you want to just typically err on the side of 3, maybe 4 months, depending on how much you're running with them. And then you'll start to see the shoes wear out as well. But for the most part, the structural integrity and the longevity of the shoe is somewhere around the 3 to 6 month mark. Again, it's kind of a large range, but there's definitely Some other variables to keep in mind.
I was always told when you start to lose grip at the bottom of the shoe, that was always like an important thing to take note of.
Right. So typically, here's a shoe. It's a little bit newer. You can see that the tread is still pretty much all there. There's not wear on one particular side. So these shoes are relatively in great condition. Very, very low mileage on them, just like a car. But yeah, the tread is typically what you want to look for. And then most people have significant wear on the outer edges. But that really depends on the foot type and the biomechanics of your foot specifically. But the tread is important to look at as well when you're thinking about when it's time to replace the shoe. Again, if you wanted to be, if you wanted like a hard number to stick to, I would say 300 miles, and probably around 3 to 4 months is when you're at. Sometimes, you can get 6 months out of it, but that just again depends on the frequency of running, how much stress you're putting on them, the terrain you're running on, and things like that. Obviously, if you have a hole in the shoe, it's definitely time. But,
Yeah.
but for the most part, athletes and runners typically follow that standard.
So if I was if I walked into a store and I was shopping for shoes,
Right.
is there a particular brand that I would look for, or is there a certain structure that I would look for that might show that shoe is a little bit better fitting or more supportive versus another shoe?
Absolutely. So most running shoes are going to inherently come with more support. So when you're looking for a high quality shoe, you want to look for something that has the support. Typically, we'll come back to this example here of this Brooks. What you want to look for is a shoe that when you bend it, the bend only happens at the toes. You never want a shoe that bends through the medial arch itself. Again, these guys here, no matter how much force you apply across it, you can see that the shoe doesn't bend through the middle. It stays pretty rigid. So that's what you want to look for in a shoe as far as what's going to be the highest quality, give you the most support, and minimize the amount of foot pain, plantar fasciitis, tendonitis, things like that. When you have the support and the structure in the shoe itself, that tends to help significantly. An example of a bad shoe, we have these Hey Dudes here. There's absolutely no support, but this also runs true for Vans and Converse and things like that. When the shoe bends directly through the medial arch, like these have no support. I'm sure if you were to wear these when you're running or having any high impact sporting activity, you will have some pain. Most likely you'll end up with plantar fasciitis, if not maybe even some strains and sprains, possibly up to a stress fracture. No support is really bad. There has been some research and some people who've emphasized barefoot running and things like that. But, clinically we've seen it doesn't support that. So ideally a high quality supportive shoe would be what you want, which this is not that.
Yeah. Great.
So go ahead.
Yeah, not to switch gears, but I hear you mention plantar fasciitis. That was a very, very common condition that I would see amongst like my fellow athletes, something I even struggled with. Can you tell me a little bit exactly even what plantar fasciitis is?
Absolutely. Plantar fasciitis is essentially, it's an itis. So itis really correlates with inflammation. So it's inflammation of the plantar fascia, and that happens on the bottom of the foot. What I would say is, let's wrap up the shoes, and we'll get into that on the next episode, where we can really dive deep into plantar fasciitis.
Okay, great.
Do you have any more questions about the shoes or anything specific that that you would like to know about high quality shoes, what to look for? Again, something I didn't mention before, my recommendation to most of my patients looking for a high quality shoe to alleviate foot problems really falls on Brooks, Asics, New Balance, and even more recently Hoka's. They all have pretty good support in them. They have enough support through the arch. And just getting back to these Brooks here, just as an example, you want to look for a shoe that, again, doesn't bend through the medial arch, and also has somewhat of a rigidity when you bend it in this orientation. And then also you have a nice stiff heel counter as well. Mm-hmm. So those are the main things. But again, for me, what I find most effective in practice over time is the shoe that does not bend through the middle. I think that is one of the key factors, that if you have that, the majority of your foot pain and foot conditions will significantly improve, if not disappear completely. Other brands that are a little bit less known would be OrthoFeet, ProPay, even Dr. Comfort. Some of these brands are specifically, they're geared towards orthopedic shoes, and actually they meet the criteria for orthopedic shoes and diabetic shoes. So they have extra support, extra cushion, extra depth, and a lot of these features that qualify them for that title. So those would be things to look for. I don't recommend like Nikes, Adidas, and Fila's, those standard like popular brands that are just for
more for style.
They're for style, and if you want to like flex on your friends and say I have the Jordans or whatever, totally fine. But if you want something that's going to address foot problems, foot conditions, and even prevent that, I would say a high quality shoe. I mean, these aren't as stylish. You're not going to be able to wear these with everything, but
right.
If
but
you're
for a nice supportive shoe, if you want to be active in
absolutely
your everyday walkers,
yeah,
that's the shoe
for like a daily driver, I would say something like this would give you the preventative means so you don't have foot pain and foot problems. Me personally, I like the Brooks Beast. They're the most supportive. The women's version is the Ariel. I'm not being paid by any of these companies, so there's no.
I was always an A6 girl.
Yeah.
I think G2000s.
I think it's the GT 2000s. Yeah, those are pretty good as well. Yeah. So yeah, overall, I would say, my personal favorite are the Brooks Beast, specifically. The Adrenalines are good too.
Mm-hmm.
There are Brooks that are very flimsy, which are more of a neutral shoe than they're not supportive. So if you're looking for something with support, go with the ones I mentioned. On their website, you can actually select neutral support and maximum support. And max support typically will fall with the Adrenalines, the Beast, and those guys in that category. So other than that, there's also a couple other companies that if you're looking for a good sandal, I know that OrthoFeet makes some, and so does Power Step, which makes orthotics. So
I personally have a pair of those.
The Power Steps?
Yeah,
they're very popular right now, especially in the summer. So our office actually carries them at the Foot Care Center.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys need to grab a pair, we have them available. So from that standpoint, that's pretty much what we would recommend for a good running shoe, or a good shoe for every day. So that wraps up our conversation on shoes. If there's any questions about shoes, you can always leave a comment below. We're happy to answer that for you and give you some more information and feedback. If you have a particular brand or model, just leave a comment below and we'll get back to you on that.
And you can always visit us at our site at www.footcarecenters.com.
Yep, absolutely. Footcarecenters.com, and we're in the office 6 days a week, even Saturdays. And we have 5 locations located throughout South Jersey. So, we should be close to someone in South Jersey. For the most part, we have one office in Vineland, Bridgeton, Elmer, Summers Point, and Cape May Courthouse, with 4 doctors, with one more that's going to be joining us.
Which is very exciting. Yeah, at the end of the month, we have our 5th doctor coming on.
They'll be joining us, and, we'll just be growing and making ourselves available to help the community in any way we can.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. This was our premiere podcast, so stay tuned. We got some excellent content coming up with a whole host of foot conditions, foot problems, and things like that. Looking forward to sharing that with you. And we'll wrap it up from here. Thanks for listening. This episode and our podcast is called Footnotes, so make sure you write a little footnote. All right.